Ix Chel, the Maya goddess of healing, birth, and the flood. You've probably heard Ix Chel described as a gentle Maya moon goddess, soft light, calm tides, a comforting divine mother. But then you stumble onto a different image. An old woman, jaguar ears, clawed hands, and a jar tilted like a judgment, pouring water so violently it looks like the world is being washed clean. So which is she? A healer or a storm? A midwife or a destroyer? A goddess of love and birth, or the force that can undo everything that's been built? Tonight, we're meeting the real Ix Chel, complex, debated, and far more powerful than the simple labels we've inherited. Who the Maya are? Before we begin, one quick grounding point. The Maya weren't one single empire with one single rulebook of beliefs. Maya civilization stretched across regions, different cities, different centuries, different local traditions. And that means gods could shift their roles depending on where you are and when you are. So when we talk about Ix Chel, we're piecing her together from several kinds of evidence: ancient art and inscriptions, the surviving Maya codices, and later colonial-era accounts written down after Spanish contact. Each source is valuable, and each has limits. Which is why Ix Chel isn't one clean character sheet. She's a living puzzle. And by the end of this story, you'll understand not only who she was, but why people still argue about which Ix Chel we're even talking about. The goddess people pray to: healing and childbirth. If there's one role that appears again and again around Ix Chel, it's this. She is tied to women's health, to medicine, and to childbirth. In several colonial-era Yucatan traditions, Ix Chel shows up as a goddess invoked in matters of fertility and making children, someone you turn to when life is at its most fragile. Now picture what that meant in the ancient world. Pregnancy and birth were dangerous. Infection was real. Complications were real. And the fear wasn't abstract. It lived inside homes. So a goddess linked to childbirth isn't just cute mythology, she is survival. She is the prayer whispered into a cloth, the offering left quietly, not for spectacle, but for protection. The name spoken when someone is sweating through pain, hoping the next breath doesn't break. And it isn't only birth. Ix Chel is also connected with healing more broadly, remedies, recovery, and the quiet power of care. That matters, because it tells us something about how the Maya could imagine divinity, not only in war and kings, but in hands that soothe, stitch, and restore. And yet, this is where the story starts to twist, because Ix Chel isn't only gentle. The many faces, the jaguar-grandmother, and the floodbringer. In Maya art and codex imagery, scholars often point to an aged goddess figure, sometimes referred to in research as Goddess O, who carries a very different vibe from the soft moon goddess stereotype. She is old, yes, but not weak. Old in the way mountains are old in the way storms are old. Sometimes she's shown with jaguar features, ears, markings, or traits that hint at the jaguar's meaning: night power, earth power, the force that moves silently and strikes without warning. And then there's the water. In some depictions, this goddess pours water from a vessel in a way that looks less like a blessing and more like a disaster. Not a gentle river, a flooding, a drowning, a reset. This is one of the most important keys to understanding Ix Chel. She represents cycles. Because in nature, the same water that feeds the fields can also erase them. The same force that brings fertility can bring ruin. The same goddess who protects mothers can be the storm that reminds everyone how fragile life is. So if you've only met Ix Chel as a calm lunar figure, it's not that the moon is wrong, it's that the moon is incomplete. The truth behind the moon goddess label. Let's tackle the biggest shortcut right now. Online, you'll often see Ix Chel presented as the Maya moon goddess, full stop. But when you look closer at the evidence, it's messier. Maya sources include multiple female deities. Their identities can overlap, their attributes can shift. And the surviving materials don't always hand us a neat caption that says, "Hello, I am Ix Chel, goddess of the moon." So what happened? Part of it is interpretation, modern scholars and storytellers trying to match images and names across different sources. Part of it is repetition. Once a simplified description spreads, it becomes the default. And part of it is honestly human nature. We like clean categories. But ancient religion doesn't always behave like a modern encyclopedia. So for this video, think of Ix Chel like a constellation. You can see the shape, you can recognize the pattern, but different people may connect the stars differently, depending on the source they trust. And that's not a weakness of the story. That complexity is the story. Moonlight and medicine. Why people still associate her with the moon? Even with all that complexity, the moon association didn't come from nowhere. Across cultures, the moon becomes linked to cycles. Cycles of time, cycles of bodies, cycles of fertility, cycles of water. So if Ix Chel is connected to childbirth, women's medicine, and healing, it makes sense that later traditions and popular retellings would pull her toward lunar symbolism. But here's the crucial point. Even if moon symbolism fits, Ix Chel isn't limited to it. She can be the calm rhythm of cycles, and also the moment those cycles break, the storm season, the flood, the violent rebalancing of nature. This is why she feels so alive. She isn't only the comfort of the night sky, she's also the reminder that the sky can turn. The islands of Ix Chel, pilgrimage, prophecy, and Cozumel. Now we move from symbols to geography, because Ix Chel isn't only an idea, she was a destination. In the post-classic period and in later records, the island of Cozumel becomes strongly associated with Ix Chel, described as a significant pilgrimage center. Think about what pilgrimage means in a world without modern travel. You don't casually take an ocean journey for a trendy spiritual weekend. You go because you're desperate, because you want answers, because you need protection, because your future, your child, your body, your marriage, your survival, feels like it's hanging by a thread. Imagine women traveling to sacred sites with offerings, asking for blessings for fertility and safe birth. Imagine rituals and consultations, something like a sacred conversation with fate, a place where the divine felt closer, where the answer might finally arrive. And nearby, you have another famous name that often gets pulled into Ix Chel's story, Isla Mujeres, the Island of Women. According to Spanish-era accounts, the island's name was linked to the presence of female figurines or idols discovered there, interpreted by outsiders through colonial eyes. Which is important to say clearly, that name reflects a colonial moment of interpretation. It's not a simple proof. But it does show how strongly female divinity, real, symbolic, or misunderstood, was associated with these islands in regional memory. And it's exactly the kind of messy overlap that follows Ix Chel everywhere. A quick pilgrimage. What if? Ask yourself this: what would make you cross water for a blessing? Not a tourist curiosity, a real aching reason. A difficult pregnancy, a history of loss, a desperate hope for a child, a sickness that won't leave. Pilgrimage is faith in motion. And a goddess tied to healing and birth becomes more than a figure on a page. She becomes a presence you can travel toward. Which may be why Ix Chel's story clings so tightly to islands, places between worlds, surrounded by water, suspended between danger and promise. The modern Ix Chel problem: reinvention, remixing, and the goddess industry. Now we step into the part of the story that almost nobody talks about directly. The Ix Chel most people know today is partly ancient and partly modern. Over the last century especially, Ix Chel has been increasingly presented as a single, clean figure, often framed as a universal moon goddess, a divine feminine icon, a spiritual brand that fits neatly on a poster. And while some of that comes from genuine attempts to understand the past, some of it comes from something else: modern reinvention. When a goddess becomes famous, she becomes transferable, portable across contexts. She can be adopted, simplified, and marketed. Pieces that don't fit the comforting narrative get sanded down. The jaguar-grandmother becomes too scary, so she fades. The flood imagery becomes too intense, so it disappears. The complex, debated identity becomes a single definition, repeated until it sounds like it was always true. Here's the respectful way to think about it. Myths evolve, people reshape them. That's part of human culture. But we should be honest about what we're doing. There's a difference between "this is what the Maya evidence suggests" and, quote, "this is a modern spiritual interpretation inspired by Ix Chel." Both can exist, but they shouldn't be treated as the same thing. How to enjoy Ix Chel without repeating misinformation? Here's a simple rule that helps. When you talk about Ix Chel, try using one of these phrases. In some Maya and later Yucatan traditions, in the codices, an aged goddess figure is sometimes associated with. In modern retellings, Ix Chel is often described as, "that small shift protects the truth and keeps the wonder." It's not about policing myth, it's about honoring it. Because Ix Chel doesn't need to be simplified to be powerful. Her power is in her contradictions. What Ix Chel represents: cycles, craft, and the shadow of the storm. So after all of this, what does Ix Chel represent? She represents care that is sacred, healing that feels like magic because it saves a life, birth as a threshold between worlds. She represents cycles, especially the cycles tied to bodies and nature. And she represents something deeper and darker too. The truth that creation and destruction aren't opposites, they're partners. The same water that cleans can drown. The same night that comforts can hide the jaguar. Ix Chel stands at that boundary. Not a tame goddess you can reduce to one symbol, but a force that mirrors nature itself, nurturing, dangerous, and real. And maybe that's why she still fascinates people now. Because she isn't a fantasy of constant softness. She is the full cycle. Ix Chel is not just a moon goddess. She is healing and childbirth, life protected in the most vulnerable moments. She is craft and cycle, time measured through bodies and water. And she is storm and flood, the reminder that nature can bless and undo. She's also something else. A story we're still arguing with. A goddess still being reimagined. A name that carries both ancient evidence and modern desire. So here's my question for you. Which version of Ix Chel surprised you most? The midwife-healer or the jaguar stormbringer? And if you want another Maya deity next, tell me who. Itzamna, Chak, or Kukulkan.